Good morning, YouTubians, it's Kermit's Ghost. Now, on Monday I received a parcel from Imprint films and it's taken me till now to watch them all. I am putting a video up on Christmas Day. It is at the moment Christmas Eve, the 23rd of December. Thought I'd come down to the seafront to blow the cobwebs away, and it's working because it's very breezy down here. Gonna go and grab a coffee in a minute, and then I'm gonna go back and start recording what I've seen. And I have watched everything that Imprint have sent me. There's gonna be 9 films to talk about, plus a season of a TV show. Each episode is around about the 50-minute mark, and there were 30 plus episodes, so there was a lot to get through. So I have fallen a little bit behind on YouTube, but I will catch up. Now I'm going to record this in my living room because at the moment, as it's a couple of days till Christmas, a lot of people are descending upon my house to stay over for the Christmas period, and the library at the moment is like a makeshift bedroom. There's air beds down, it's very cozy in there, but there's nowhere to film. So I'm going to record this kind of a point of view shot in my living room by the tree, so you know, you have to bear with me on this one, and there's going to be a lot of voiceovers as well because I just can't get the angle to set up the lights and the tripod. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. I'm going to go and grab a coffee now, not a sponsor, then I head home and show you what Imprint has kindly sent to me. Merry Christmas, everybody. Okay, so here are the 3 sets kindly sent to me by Imprint Films. Thank you very much. On the left-hand side, got the Carry On Collection 3. In the middle is the Essential Film Noir Collection 5. And on the right-hand side is the Avengers, the Tara King Collection, which is Series 6. Well, as you can see, I put the Carry On Collection 3 set on the turntable so you can see the box that houses these films in a little bit more detail. Now, before I show you these films, I want to say I'm a huge fan of the franchise. I love every single one of these. Grew up watching these over and over throughout the 70s and 80s. The titles, which are listed on the front and the spine, are Carry On Spying, Carry On Cleo, Carry On Cowboy, and Carry On Screaming. And as we head around the back of the box, you may notice that the 4 images of the Carry On films are actually used in the original poster artwork, one of which almost got Pinewood Studios sued by James Bond's producer Albert Broccoli. I will take a picture of the back of the box and I'll put it on screen so you can check out the extras that are included in this set. Now, I know we've come a long way since these films were made, and you could argue that they may seem a little bit dated to some people, or the humour a little bit childish, but there is a charm to these movies. So take it on face value that I am very pleased to have these in my collection. Hopefully, Imprint will continue to put these sets out. Picture quality on all the Carry On films is top notch. So let's have a look at each film individually. So, the first title out of the set is Carry On Spying. This one's from 1964. It's a 9th film in the franchise. Directed, as they all were, by Gerald Thomas, and this was filmed in black and white. Now, the Carry On Jack, the previous film, was in colour, so maybe they did it to give that noir look, or because of funding, who knows. I do know that the Carry On producer, Peter Rogers, was a notorious Scrooge-like person, but that's another story. So this sees Barbara Windsor join the team as Agent Daphne Honeybutt, codenamed Brown Cow. She is a trainee and she's accompanied by 2 other novices. Agent Harold Crump, codenamed Blue Bottle, being played by Bernard Cribbins, his second Carry On film. Now, his exotic dance sequence in this is something to be seen. There's also Charlie Bind, 000, played by Charles Hawtrey, codenamed Yellow Peril. And the writers wanted his name to be James Bind 006 and a half, but Albert Broccoli threatened to sue Pinewood Studios, so they changed it. Pinewood also had issues with the poster artwork and its similarity to From Russia with Love. Anyway, the 3 newbies are under the command of Agent Desmond Simpkins, codenamed Red Admiral, being played by Kenneth Williams, his 8th film in the franchise, and it was also Charles Hawtrey's 8th Carry On film as well. Now, together the team must retrieve a chemical formula which will be used to exterminate all non-conforming humans by a radical fraction group known as Stench. Despite having locations in the film like Vienna and Algiers, it was all filmed on the Pinewood lot. Again, Peter Rogers penny pinching. If they filmed more than 1.5 miles from the Pinewood lot, it was classed as a location shoot and would incur extra funding like catering and the hotels. Now, there were a few regulars missing from this one. Sid James, Hattie Jakes, Kenneth Connors and Joan Sims, who was still unwell but would return for Carry On Cleo, which was made the same year. But this also stars the lovely Dilys Lay, who was filling in for Sims. She plays a double agent. And alongside Dilys, we have Jim Dale in his 3rd appearance. He starred in 11 in total. He is Agent Carstairs. And last but not least is Eric Barker as the Chief in his 3rd outing. He doesn't make a return to the franchise for 14 years in his final film, Carry On Emmanuel, from 1978. This film's got a runtime 1 hour 27 minutes. So the next Carry On film is Carry On Cleo, and this is from the same year, and from here on they are all in colour. This is the 10th Carry On film in the series, and the story starts with Horsa and Hengist, two cavemen who have just invented the window. Horsa is strong and resourceful, and Hengist is downtrodden, henpecked, and a bit of a weakling. Meanwhile, Mark Anthony, played by Sid James, is marching his army across a windswept England countryside. Horsa, by the way, is played by Jim Dale, and Hengist is played by Kenneth Connor, who, after this, took a break from the franchise for 6 years. Now, the cavemen are caught and sold by Marcus and Spensius into the slave trade. I bet M&S loved that. And back at the Roman settlement, the Emperor Julius Caesar is struggling with the weather and a head cold. Now, Julius is played by Kenneth Williams, and Julius is told of Cleopatra and an impending doom, so he returns to Rome to receive a less than warm welcome from the onlooking crowds, and his wife Calpurnia is angry for him being away for 3 years as well. And Calpurnia is played by Jane Sims, who's now returned to the franchise after her bout of illness. Her father in this is Seneca, a soothsayer, played by Charles Hawtrey, and Cleopatra's soothsayer is played by John Pertwee. So after an attempt on Julius's life by his bodyguard, Horsa protects him and kills 5 Roman assassins, and after he escapes and Hengist gets all the credit and becomes Julius's new bodyguard. Mark Anthony is sent to Egypt to tell Cleopatra to abdicate. Amanda Barry is playing the total character of Cleopatra, and we all know the outcome of this. Infamy, infamy, they've all got it in for me. Classic line. This also stars Francis de Wolfe as Agrippa, who is a huge captain of Julius's galley ship. And Francis also played the ghost of Christmas Present in the 1951 version of Scrooge, which coincidentally starred Hattie Jakes as Mrs. Fezziwig. But alas, Hattie is not in any of these Carry On movies in this set. She doesn't make a return to the Carry On franchise till the 1967 Carry On Doctor. This one's got a runtime 1 hour 32 minutes. Next we have Carry On Cowboy from 1965. It's a comedy western starring Sid James as the Rumpole Kid. He's a feared gunslinger who rides into Stodge City and immediately guns down 3 complete strangers. The mayor and judge of Stodge is Judge Burke, being played by Kenneth Williams. Burke infamously ran Jesse James out of town, a female Jesse James, but Jesse James all the same. Now, Burke is all for the quiet life when Rumpole comes into the saloon and orders alcohol in a teetotal town and kills the sheriff. And that sheriff is a short-sighted, near-on-deaf Albert Earp, being played by John Pertwee. Now, Burke wires Washington to get a replacement gunslinging sheriff to take care of business, and they send, by an honest mistake, a Marshall P. Nutt, who is an English sanitations engineer. His first name was Marshall, and that's how the mistake was made. Now, Nutt thinks he's heading into Stodge to put in a new sewer system. Oh, and also stars Jane Sims as Belle Armitage, the landlady of the saloon, and she welcomes the change that Rumpole's made to the town. In addition, there's the beautiful Angela Douglas as Annie Oakley, who's in town to avenge the death of her father, Albert Earps. Angela, you may know, was married to Kenneth Moore from 1968 to his death in 1982. And in this, she is Nutt's love interest. Now, Bernard Bresslaw makes his first appearance in the franchise as a Native American called Little Heap. He's the son of Big Heap, played by Charles Hawtrey, and it was also Peter Butterworth's first appearance as well. And he would go on to star in a further 15 films in the franchise. I'm also going to mention that Sally Douglas, who appears in 5 Carry On films, Jack, Spine, Cleo, Cowboy, and the next film, Screaming, only in small roles, but she, in this, plays a Native American girl. Now, I mentioned her because she sadly passed away of lung cancer, aged just 59. This one's got a runtime 1 hour, 34 minutes. Okay, last one in this set is Carry On Screaming from 1966. It's the 12th film in the franchise. This is definitely a nod to the Hammer horror films and many others, most notably House of Wax. Film opens with Doris and Albert on a date, and the pair are played by Jim Dale and Angela Douglas, the couple from the previous film, Carry On Cowboy. Doris is kidnapped by a monster called Oddbod, who's voiced by Tom Clegg, who has small parts in all the films in this set. The abduction gets reported, and then Detective Sergeant Sidney Bung is assigned the case. Now, Sidney is played by Harry H. Corbett of Steptoe and Son fame, and they actually use a few seconds of the TV theme tune to Steptoe and Son in this film. His wife is Emily, who is constantly moaning at him. Emily is played by Jane Sims, and Sidney's assistant is Detective Constable Slowbottom, played by Peter Butterworth. Now, whilst they're investigating the crime scene, Slowbottom encounters the monster and faints, and then on the way back to the station, Sidney, Albert, and the now conscious Slowbottom discover a creepy mansion in the woods, and they investigate further. At the mansion, there is a lurch-like butler named Socket who shows them in. Socket is being played by Bernard Bresslaw. Now, did you know he was 6'7", huge man? The family residents are very much in the style of the Addams Family. The mistress of the house is Valeria Watt, who's being played by Fenella Feldin, a kind of Morticia-type character. You may know Fenella as Mrs. Fox from Guest House Paradiso. And the master of the house is Dr. Orlando Watt, being played by Kenneth Williams. He's equivalent to Gomez. He needs to be plugged into the mains electricity or we fade away. Now, Valeria and Orlando, they have a sideline supplying shots with mannequins. Well, I won't say any more story-wise. You've probably seen it already anyway. Also stars Charles Hawtrey as Dan, the toilet attendant, who used to be a gardener for the Watts, but he met a watery end as he knew too much. John Pertwee is back, this time playing Dr. Fettle, who accidentally regrows the monster from a severed finger. The new monster is voiced by the director Gerald Thomas. Now, Sid James was meant to play Detective Bung, but he had a prior theatre commitment, so as a nod, they gave Bung the first name of Sydney. And this one has a runtime of 1 hour, 36 minutes. Now, included in this carry-on collection is a very interesting book, and I've got to say this is full to the brim. In fact, they've crammed so much information into this book, you may need a magnifying glass to read some of the content, as the writing can be a little bit minute at times, with featured articles, interviews, press ads, poster art, foreign and domestic, costume design, newspaper clippings, press information, merchandise that's available and was available. This book has got it all, even plot synopsis, and it does cover all 12 carry-on films that have been released by Imprint Films so far. This is a solid companion piece for the show and to any collector. Well worth picking up just for this alone. So I've lined up all 3 sets so you can see them side by side, and this is a total that have been released so far. I really do hope Imprint Films continue with this line. The films that have been released so far are Carry On Sergeant, Carry On Nurse, Carry On Teacher, Carry On Constable, Carry On Regardless, Carry On Cruising, Carry On Cabby, Carry On Jack, Carry On Spying, Carry On Cleo, Carry On Cowboy, and last but not least, Carry On Screaming. And this covers the Carry On franchise from 1958 to 1966. So next is the Essential Film Noir Collection 5. Now, there are 4 movies in here, most of which are world's first Blu-ray releases. The film covers a period from 1940 to 1962. The movies included are Island of Doomed Men, followed by The Red Menace, then The Burglar, and finally 13 West Street. Now, this set came out on the 29th of November this year, and it's limited to 1,500 copies. There will be a link to the Imprint Films in the description below where you can pick these up should you wish. Okay, first title out of the set is Island of Doomed Men. This is the world's first Blu-ray release for this one. It's a crime thriller from 1940, some 83 years old now. It's directed by Charles Barton, who also made Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948, as well as Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer Boris Karloff the year after. This stars Robert Wilcox as Mark Sheldon, who is Agent 64. He works undercover, but in a twist of fate, he's sent to prison for the murder he didn't commit. The victim was his contact and fellow agent number 46. Sheldon, or Agent 64 if you prefer, is convicted, sentenced, and eventually taken to a private island of Stephen Dunnell, which happens to be the case he was assigned to at the start of the film. Now, he was originally tasked with trying to take down an illegal slave operation that's being ran by Stephen Dunnell, played by Peter Lorre, and this was just 2 years after he starred in Casablanca. Stephen convinces the local prisons to release inmates to him to be rehabilitated free of charge, but in actual fact he's forcing them to mine his diamonds for him on his private island under horrible conditions. And to add to Agent 64's problems, Stephen knows that he was working for the government and he was investigating them. Meanwhile, Stephen's wife is Lorraine, and played by Rochelle Hudson. She is unhappy and she's practically a prisoner on the island herself. Now, Agent 64 manages to escape by strangling one of the camp doctors, played by Kenneth MacDonald, who actually starred in 15 Three Stooges short films. Once escaped, Agent 64 and Lorraine team up, but are soon caught by Stephen. I'll leave it there story-wise. This was a fun watch, obviously a little bit dated, but it was a lot of fun. On a sad note, none of the 3 main players in this, Wilcox, Hudson or Lorre, lived to see the age of 60, and I refer to them as players as that's what they were referred to in the opening credits. They use some pretty good tracking shots in this movie, and the picture quality is excellent. This one's got a runtime of just 67 minutes, so it's a very quick watch. Next is The Red Menace, an anti-communist drama from 1949 directed by R.G. Springsteen. And yes, he was born in the USA. Sometimes credited as Bob Springsteen, he was a prolific B-Western director. And the film opens with Nina and Bill in a car running away from something, an unseen menace. Nina is suspicious of everyone and everything. And Nina is played by Hannah Axman and Bill is played by Robert Rockwell. Now the reason why they're running away is explained in flashback. Bill was a soldier. He gets cheated out of some land by a real estate company, a GI housing project that was a con, and the Veterans Service Centre tell him that they won't help either. This is observed and he gets befriended by William Lally, who takes him to a bar and introduces him to Molly, played by Barbara Fuller, and much to the annoyance of Yvonne, who saw him first. Yvonne is played by Betty Lou Gerson, and you may not recognise her name, but you will recognise her laugh and her voice. She voiced Cruella de Vil in the Disney's animated classic 101 Dalmatians in 1961. Bill is taken to a violent demonstration targeting the real estate company, and all this is orchestrated by the Communist Party. And when the police arrive, Bill is saved by Nina, who, alongside Yvonne, become Bill's teacher of Marxist principles. When one of the students, an ex-GI, is killed for speaking out during class, Nina starts to have doubts and fears about the party herself, and Yvonne has her watched. And when Bill wants out, the two go on the run. And that's when we come full circle and catch up with the start of the film. Now, this film paints communist leaders as dictators and the members as brainwashed fodder who break under the slightest bit of pressure. One man actually jumps to his death after being shunned by his leader. Also shows the church as the great savior of the communist lost soul. The end of this film is as American as it gets, with a sheriff whose name is actually referred to as Uncle Sam. They tell Nina and Bill to get hitched and raise some real American kids. Fascinating stuff. Picture quality on this was extremely good, and it had a runtime of 1 hour 27 minutes. Next title is The Burglar. It's a world's first Blu-ray release for this one. It's a heist thriller from 1953 directed by Paul Wendkus, whose other movies include Gidget Goes to Rome and Gidget Goes Hawaiian, which, thinking about it, will feature an actor from the next film I show. Now, this movie opens with a woman called Sister Sarah, so called because she's a spiritualist, who has just inherited a huge mansion, a large fortune, and a priceless necklace. And it's this necklace, the MacGuffin of the film, that attracts a group of thieves who wish to rob and steal that priceless item, which is sitting in a safe, which is in her bedroom next to her bed. So the heist itself is successful, but is interrupted by two police officers who spot an abandoned car outside Sister Sarah's estate, which happens to belong to the safecracker. They question the driver, who is Nat Harbin, tells him he's broken down, which they believe, and move on. But obviously, after the robbery, they have his description. Harbin is played by Dan Duryea, and I should point out that they find out where the safe is and how to get to it from Gladden, who is played by Jane Mansfield. She poses as a follower of Sister Sarah, who is invited into the house where she sketched the layout. After the heist, the gang have to wait a while before they can fence a necklace because it's a very high valued item and sure to bring them a lot of unwanted attention, and it's not long before they start to get on each other's nerves. So Gladden is sent off to Atlantic City to wait for Harbin, and while sitting on the beach, she strikes up a relationship with a stranger, and it turns out he's been following the gang, unbeknownst to Gladden, and we find out later his name is Charlie and played by Stuart Bradley. There's also a woman working with Charlie called Della who seduces Harbin. I know why, but I won't give it away. I will mention that Harbin catches on to her relatively quickly. There is quite a twist in the story though. Della, by the way, is played by Martha Vickers. This was a good story with a few twists and turns. Picture quality wasn't bad for a film of its age. It did have a few ups and downs, the odd grainy moment mixed with crystal clarity, but nothing to put you off. It's got a runtime of 1 hour 30 minutes. The last movie in this set is 13 West Street, a crime thriller revenge movie from 1962. This one is directed by Philip Leacock and is based on the novel The Tiger Among Us, which was written 5 years earlier by Lee Brackett. Again, this is a world's first Blu-ray release for this film. This stars Alan Ladd as Walter Sherrill. He is a rocket design engineer who, after his car runs out of fuel on the way back from work, gets randomly set upon by some well-dressed and clearly educated thugs, which results in Walter getting beaten to a pulp. Now, whilst recovering in hospital, Walt gives a very good description of the events to Detective Koleski, being played by Rob Steiger, who starts his investigation. Now, Walt clearly has some PTSD and starts to obsess about the incident, and he wants a little bit of justice and maybe just a touch of revenge. It's also affecting Walt's wife Tracy, who's become a little bit paranoid every time that she sees a teenager in the area that they live, assuming that the thugs live nearby because of the education and clothing that they wore. Tracy is played by Dolores Dawn, who was 28 years younger than her on-screen husband. Good old Hollywood. Oh, and I also forgot to mention the leader of the thugs is Chuck Landry, who's being played by Michael Callan, who starred as Eddie Horner in Gidget Goes Hawaiian, which was directed by Paul Wencus, which I showed on the 29th of May this year. Chuck gets word that the police are questioning the schools and the local bar, and naturally he wants the investigation to go away, so he starts to intimidate Tracy at home, which, by the way, their address is the film's title. Chuck makes threatening phone calls and he starts to break windows, but this just motivates Walter more. I won't say any more story-wise. This was a very good watch. Ladd was a little bit stiff with his acting, but the story was there. Steiger, I thought, would stand out in this. Very charismatic and very convincing. I will mention there is a suicide scene, so if you do watch this, be warned. Picture quality was very good indeed, and it's got a runtime of 1 hour, 20 minutes. Okay, so on to the last item, and by the way, I've watched everything that has been sent to me. Picture quality on this set is second to none. So if you are a fan of the Avengers TV show, I recommend you get this one. So this is The Avengers, the Tara King collection, which is season 6, which ran from 1968 to 69. Tara King is played by Linda Thorson in her first ever acting role. And as the cases are revolving on the turntable, I will talk about the show. So the premise is this. It is an espionage TV series comprising of 6 seasons, and this happens to be the final season, which aired September 1968. Its lead character is John Steed, played by Patrick Macnee, who is a revered spy in the organisation known as the Ministry, which is ran by a wheelchair-bound character known as Mother, played by Patrick Newell. Over the years, Steed has had several assistants. You had Kathy Gale, played by Honor Blackman, Purdy, played by Joanna Lumley, but most notably, in my opinion, was Emma Peel, played by Diana Rigg, who is still the main assistant in the first episode in this season, which is titled Forget Me Not, which serves as a crossover episode for his next main assistant, Tara King. Each episode has a runtime of around 51 minutes a piece, and they do fly by, and they have a semi-serious storyline mixed together with Camp 60 style action sequences, and the occasional oddity. In episode 3, Super Secret Cipher Snatch, there's a Sherlock Holmes character investigating a crime scene complete with deerstalker hat, magnifying glass, and violin. I will point out that the female roles were often written as strong and intelligent characters, and I imagine that was pretty rare when it was filmed in the 60s. Now the budget on this looked very limited indeed, as it was filmed often on cheap studio sets, which were often reused, or they'd film at country lanes or in open land. There was one particular costume that looked like a child made it. It was a spaceman suit in episode 2 titled Invasion of the Earthmen. The thing looked like Metal Mickey. But for me, it's the characters that make this show special. The chemistry between Steed and Tara works very well, and it's established pretty quickly in the season. Various film and television stars pop up in episodes. For example, you've got Robert Gillespie from the 1978 version of 39 Steps. Nigel Davenport stars alongside Julian Glover in episode 4, which is called Split, which is about brainwashing agents over the phone. Peter Bowles from the show To the Man Are Born pops up in an episode in which he can turn invisible. But there was a ridiculous episode about killer clowns which starred both Bernard Cribbins and John Cleese. Cleese was playing the keeper of the eggs, which have clown faces painted on them to identify them individually, like fingerprints. My God, that was a struggle to get through. But like I said, if you are a fan of this TV show, then this will definitely appeal to you. We also got Christopher Lee, Brian Blessed, Roy Kinnear, Edward Fox alongside his ex-wife Tracy Reed, Michael Ward, who also starred in Carry On Cleo and Screaming, Eric Barker from Carry On Spy, and Angela Douglas from Carry On Cowboy and Screaming, to name but a few. Now, 33 episodes in total in this season, which is pretty much unheard of today. There's also 3 episodes from Series 1, 2 episodes and a complete scene from the pilot show. There's also 1 episode from Series 2 and 1 episode from Series 3. I enjoyed the show overall, probably not a show I would have dabbled in, so very glad to have it sent over. Pushed me out of my comfort zone a little bit, so thank you very much to Imprint Films for that. But that's not all. There's also a bonus film included. And here is the film included, Mr. Jericho, a heist movie from 1970 directed by Sidney Hayers, who directed several of the Avengers and later the New Avengers episodes, amongst other things. This film was made just after season 6 of the Avengers ended, and this movie was also written by Philip Levine, who wrote 19 episodes of the Avengers. This was because ITC Studios wanted to give the film a push with an established team. They also used the same director of photography, Alan Hume, production designer Harry Pottle, Laurie Johnson provided the score, and even the producer Julian Wintle was called back. So this stars Patrick Macnee, but this time he's playing Dudley Jericho, a con man and thief who has his heart on stealing the prized possession from a wealthy man called Rosso, played by Herbert Lom, who was Chief Inspector Dreyfus in the Pink Panther films. The MacGuffin in this film is the Gemini Diamond, and Dudley has an assistant to help called Wally, played by Marty Allen. His character is a bit of a lech. He's constantly staring at young women in bikinis in a very obvious way. The film is set in Malta to give it that exotic feel. In fact, the only thing standing in Dudley's way is his competition, fellow con artist who's played by Connie Stevens, who is a master of disguise and runs circles around Dudley. To be fair to Dudley, he does actually steal the diamond twice, in fact, but he discovers they're both fakes. Again, Connie running circles around him. There are a lot of twists and turns, and of course there is a big car chase. This was a lot of fun, this film, very of its time. Picture quality is crystal clear. There is an extra in the special features showing how they restored this film from the negative, and there is an audio commentary too. This one's got a runtime 1 hour 25 minutes. There's also this beautiful book included in a set. It talks about the series episodes in great detail and behind the scenes as well. More text than pictures, which is a bonus in my opinion. A great companion to the show. Also included is an extra disc which has the first 20 minutes of the pilot episode called Hot Snow, plus 2 full season 1 episodes, number 6 called Girl on the Train and 15 called The Frighteners. The pace and feel is very far removed from Series 6, obviously lesser quality, but it does improve as you go along. Honor Blackman is the assistant in these, and in addition, there's an episode from Series 2 titled Bullseye, which is episode 8, plus an episode from Series 3 called Mandrake, which is episode 21. Okay, before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to Imprint Films for sending over those box sets for me to show on my channel. Very much appreciated. And I want to say a Merry Christmas to everybody who's watching this video and anybody who isn't watching this video. Have a great Christmas and a very happy New Year. So that was it. Have you seen any of those titles? Plan to pick them up or just want to leave a comment? Then do so down below. I will read every single one and try to reply if I have the time. Give the video a thumbs up, really does help the channel. And subscribe if you haven't, it's all free. Why wouldn't you? And on that note, all it's had to say is thank you so much for choosing my channel today and watching my video. Take care. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.